I want you to think about the most beautiful, breathtaking, or maybe bucket list place you have ever visited. You know, one of those places or experiences that just blew you away. Can you imagine anyone ever being critical of that? Well, I'll tell you a couple of those places for me, but first, thanks for tuning in to Journey at Home. We want to make it simple for you to follow Jesus and live a better life. So help us spread this content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Maybe text this content to a friend who'll find it helpful or share it on social for us. Now, a couple breathtaking places for me come to mind. One is Yosemite National Park. I've been a couple times. I love that place. El Capitan, Half Dome, Yosemite Falls, Tunnel View, Glacier Point. I mean, it's all incredible. Pictures, if you've ever seen pictures only, they don't do it justice. So I was a little surprised when I read this one-star review of Yosemite, and I quote, "Trees block view and there are too many gray rocks." Seriously, where did they think they were going to be going? I'll give you one more example. We had the opportunity last year to watch a sunset at the summit in Haleakala National Park in Maui. We were there with our family. It's 10,000 feet above sea level, which means on most nights you're watching the sunset above the clouds. It's a really cool experience. So again, I was a little surprised when I found this review. A reviewer simply put, pretty average experience. So for all you moms out there who get bad reviews from your kids or your significant other, just remember that not all reviews can be trusted. You are 5-star in our eyes. Now, if you're wondering why I wasted my time on Mother's Day finding bad reviews of national parks, well, it's because I get reviews of my sermons quite often. Sometimes I just need to remember I have good company in the 1-star club. No, actually, this is episode 3 of our series, Gaming Relationships, where we're identifying the games we play that undermine the relationships that matter to us. Now, most of us like to win. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to relationships, a game that requires a loser is a game nobody wins. And you already know this. Have you ever won an argument at home? Yeah, and what was the prize you won? Nothing you actually wanted, was it? You may have the satisfaction of believing you won, but you really lost, and you always pay for it. Because the win in a relationship is the relationship. So when you play things like the blame game, the shame game, the guilt game, well, we always end up losing the bigger game that matters most in the relationship we care about. And that's true for what we're talking about today. We'll spend the next few minutes talking about the change game. The change game is when you're trying to fix him or fix her. You just don't want them to know you're trying to change them, but you're sure you can, and you're sure everything's going to be better when you do. And for a lot of us, this game comes really naturally because it is natural to be critical. We are far more prone to see the negative over the positive, and we're certainly more likely to share the negative over the positive. That's why Yosemite and Haleakala get 1-star reviews. But while it's humorous when you read those for national parks, criticism, 1-star reviews for relationships, they can be deadly. You know this because we all live on both sides of this game. We have been on the side of somebody trying to change us, and we have been on the side of trying to change somebody. And it usually sounds like, you should probably fix that. You need to work on that. You should stop doing that. You should start doing that. But let me ask you, how do you respond when someone tries to change you? Never with gratitude, do you? No, you're like me. You resist people who try to change you. But in spite of that, we've all turned around and we have tried to change people. And it's a lose-lose game. Now, if you're a follower of Jesus, there is an added layer to this tension because when I try to change you to meet my standard, I'm actually playing God in your life. When I criticize you, I'm making the change I think you should take priority over the value God says you have. I'm actually looking down on you because you don't do what I think you should. I'm devaluing you. Plenty of us have been guilty of carrying this critical, judgmental approach in the name of Jesus, even though this is the exact opposite of how our leader instructed us to live. Jesus addressed this directly in the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew 7, he said, "Do not judge." Now, you probably have heard this, and it's often misunderstood. So let me be clear. When Jesus talked about not judging, he wasn't referring to talking about right and wrong with someone. He wasn't talking about having a loving but honest conversation with someone about change. He wasn't even referring to speaking the truth in love. Specifically, this word judge means to not carry an attitude of superiority about you. So don't look down on somebody, criticize their faults, jump on their failures, and condemn their actions because you're being self-righteous. Judging is the idea of coming in on the hunt for their faults just so we can criticize them. And Jesus is going, no. That's not helpful. You can't win when there's no loving concern for the person on the other side of you. Practically, he's saying, don't be critical before you're compassionate. Don't focus on the issue without first focusing on the person who is on the other side of the issue. Don't be legalistic rather than loving. Don't elevate some version of morality or theology to the point that it diminishes the person who you think doesn't measure up to it. In other words, never let what you believe matter more to you than the person who believes differently than you. Any morality or theology that is absent of love is a false morality or theology. But it is what we're all tempted to do when we play the change game, isn't it? We prioritize our position over the person, and we lose the relationship that we actually wanted because of it. So Jesus warns us, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you'll be judged. And he says, with the measure you use, it'll be measured to you. In other words, Jesus is going, if you play the change game, if you're critical of others before you're compassionate, you devalue them by the way you judge them, then I'm going to judge you in the same way you judge them. Now, if that scares you, it should. But this is how big a deal it is to God when somebody devalues another person. So let me ask you a question. When there's something in your life that needs to change, how do you want someone to approach you about it? Well, you want them to approach you with love and humility and kindness, right? So Jesus' point is you treat others like you'd want to be treated. You approach others full of grace and full of truth like you'd want to be approached. And if you find yourself making a case for why the change game is okay for you to play, well, Jesus says, let me ask you a question. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and you pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? In other words, whenever we play the change game, we are actually declaring our own blind spots. We are admitting our own self-righteousness. You see, if we had a healthy awareness of our own issues that need to change, we would never approach someone else with a critical, judgmental spirit. Playing the change game simply declares to everybody, I am out of touch with my own problems. So Jesus goes on, he says, well, how can you say to your brother, hey, let me take that speck out of your eye when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? Jesus' point is there is no other explanation except your pride and mine has blinded us to our own issues. And so Jesus calls it what it is. He says, you hypocrite. Now, do you know the recipe for toxic hypocrisy? It is ignorance plus arrogance. And every time we play the change game, we're demonstrating both. So Jesus has some clear directives for us. He says, you hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So clearly, Jesus isn't saying we should never hold anybody accountable. We should never have an honest conversation with somebody. He's saying the approach matters. That we should never do it from a position of ignorance and arrogance of our own issues. You do it from a position of awareness and humility. And the place that you do it from changes the game. It changes the outcome. One creates distance in a relationship. One draws you closer together. You can think of it this way. When you play the change game, you spend your time holding a magnifier and going, oh, let me show you all the stuff you need to fix in your life. And their speck in the magnifier looks like a plank to you because you chose to magnify it. But what you don't want to do is look in the mirror. You know, I'm not interested in seeing my own flaws. I'm focused on yours. And the reality is, you know how hard this is because you've been on the receiving end of it, haven't you? You know how it feels. You feel insecure in this kind of relationship because the message is you don't measure up. When somebody's using a magnifier on you, you feel unworthy because the message is you're not good enough. You feel judged because the message is I'm better than you. But when you know the person talking to you spends more time looking in the mirror at their own faults than they do holding a magnifier at yours, well, then what happens when that person lovingly approaches you about an issue? Oh, you're wide open to hear what they have to say because you know they're not coming from a position of superiority. The mirror has made it clear they're coming as a fellow person who's trying to grow and change with you. They're coming as a peer who values you. And that acceptance you feel, it opens you up to influence. So tell me, in spite of the fact that we all know that, why do we so often choose to hold a magnifier first and go after other people instead of holding a mirror and looking at our own faults? Why do we play the toxic change game instead of loving people with the grace and the mercy that Jesus has shown us? Why are we often so harsh or mean in how we talk to people about their shortcomings? For those of us who are Jesus followers, well, he's really clear. Stop playing the change game. Start playing the grace game. The grace game says, yeah, there are areas where I need to change just like you, so I'll be full of grace and truth towards you just like Jesus is towards me. When you're playing the grace game, listen, don't miss this. Your heart loves people before your mind judges them. Your heart breaks for people before your mind condemns them. Your heart is filled with compassion for people before your mind criticizes them. This is what Jesus does for us every day. So, what do you tend to walk around with the most? A magnifier or a mirror? Listen, you only get to the grace game when you learn to hold up a mirror more often. But once you do, you will see others and treat others more like Jesus, and you will appreciate more than ever before the grace and the mercy that Jesus has shown you. And as a result of that, you will be drawn closer to the people in your life, because criticism separates, grace invites. No one wins in the change game. So let's be people who play the grace game, because when everybody plays, everybody wins.